Oh my gosh, it's all three of the big dudes in the trenches.
Oh my god, I'm back for now.
Finally, about time. Yeah, you're gonna have to dip on us. It's fine. We get it.
Yeah, we know.
Look, I normally love a certain airline, but I'm not happy with them today.
By a certain airline, do you happen to mean the United States Air Force?
No. Look, I'm not the one who dipped. I didn't dip.
Oh, well, this happens too. Oh man,
Oh.
it's time for the big dudes in the trenches. If you haven't expected scheduling difficulties by now, this is the wrong show for you. But yes, we are all back. We are in the midst of our conference preview series. We have already gone through 9 FBS conferences. We have an entire 13 FCS conferences yet to go. But tonight just means more because we are doing the SEC. That's right. On live stream tonight, we are just talking about the Southeastern Conference. And then, of course, if you're listening on audio, we would recommend you check out the video version of this because there are graphics involved, all good stuff.
And dancing heads.
And dancing heads. Bug has us moving all around the screen. It's very exciting. But if you want to catch all of that live and talk to us there, of course, you can check us out on Twitch at Big Dudes in the Trenches, all one word. That's the best place to watch this podcast because Bug does some very fun, exciting stuff live on screen all the time. It's wonderful.
It's a great time.
Stuff. But mostly for the dancing heads.
Yes.
Oh, man. So I don't know if you have anything you guys want to say before we get started here, but
I have just one thing. It just means more.
That is correct.
All right, I'm ready to go.
Actually accurate. Tonight's show just means more. All right, so the SEC is for at least a little while longer a conglomeration of 14 big time schools. It won't be 14 too much longer because starting in 2024, they will be adding Oklahoma and Texas and possibly more than that. See what happens to the ACC in the next 24 hours.
I heard there's 4 schools in the Pac-12 that are looking for a new home.
Yeah, I can definitely see the SEC and adding Stanford and Cal. That's 100% going to happen. Yes, you're first.
The very, very southeastern Stanford and Cal. Yes,
Yes.
As much as I shit on the SEC, I got to give it to them. They've actually done a pretty good job of maintaining. Hey, we're the Southeastern Conference. We want our teams to at least somewhat be in the Southeast, which is, I guess the Big Ten wasn't really region defined. I guess the Big 12 isn't really region defined. But dear Lord, it's like they aren't even trying to keep things.
Big Ten definitely was at one time, and they gave up on that. Also, I say the SEC gave up on that when they put Missouri in the SEC East, but
yeah, that's true.
I would say
will
it's
say
almost,
though,
it's more likely though that they add Air Force, Army, and Navy than they add Stanford at all. So
a lot is made of the travel and everything, but we live in such an age now where I don't know that I'm that worried about how long the travel is. It's not that big of a deal, I guess. Air travel's gone such a long way now.
Yep.
I will throw out here though.
Just ask those Washington State tennis players once they get done playing Miami how much they're looking forward to that flight home.
Oof.
I will say though, you put it in a weird spot. If you take out the fact that Georgia technically won 2 bowl games and just count the national championship as one, the SEC was 500 in their bowl games, if I'm counting this right.
Sounds right.
That's about standard.
To do math earlier.
No, 6 and 5. Sorry, 6 and 5. Because I don't want to count 2 different bowl games when they were one of the only teams that played 2.
Well, technically, the College Football National Championship game is not a sponsored bowl. At least I don't think it is. It is the CFB
It's just the national championship.
Championship.
Yeah, but like kind of is.
For as much as they talk about how great they are, they only one game above 500, and that includes the first team we're talking about getting absolutely fucking mud stomped by Oregon State in the fucking Las Vegas Bowl. What happened there, and what do we think is going to happen with them this year?
Well, number one, Oregon State's really that good, and number two, Florida really is that mediocre. So, suck it, Gators. Actually, please don't. That'd be very painful.
Jesus.
No, we're looking at Billy Napier's second season in the SEC, and I know last season he came in with a ton of hype, but he also came in with a roster that was really dog shit. So it'll be fascinating to see what he can do in the next couple of years as he tries to build up a roster that kind of sucks still. Like the front seven's okay, and
they did decent last year, and Billy Napier is a good coach. They have a chance to continue to build, but you're right. It's going to take them another couple seasons at least to get Billy Napier's recruits in and make them worth anything, really.
I think they get by on their name recognition a lot. I think they are the epitome of that in the SEC. And really, a lot of that's built off of those teams that Urban Meyer had, at least for our generation. And the Swamp, those teams are getting their own untold documentary here on Netflix, along with another well deserved, along with another former SEC player. And I'll mention who that is and where that is a little bit later in the show. And it's I'm excited for that one personally.
So even though they did go like 500, they did beat the Pac-12 champions in week 1 down in the Swamp. So it is still a team full of potential. Let's be generous.
I mean, that's more than what we can say about Vandy.
We'll get
slanderous. You better shut your mouth. Vanderbilt's going to be better than Florida this year, 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, but at least Florida isn't going to play on a high school field. All right.
Hold on.
Those are different. Those are separate issues.
I will put money on Florida to beat Vandy this year.
I will take that bet, depending on the odds.
Oh, no. This is just outright.
That's not what I agreed to.
He agreed to. He's talking about the odds, not the spread.
The odds are the winner gets the other's money.
Let's go ahead and jump to Georgia here. Georgia is going to look very different yet again for the second straight season, third straight season probably, honestly, of being an entirely different roster and yet probably also still being the most dominant team of all time again somehow.
We're going to sit there and scratch our heads and be like, what team could possibly beat this Georgia team for the second year in a row?
So I will say, everyone's going to sit there and say, who's the quarterback, and act like that's an issue. But I've also said that for like the past 4 years when Stetson Bennett was at quarterback. And it's been pretty good for them ever since. Kirby Smart's a good coach. This offense doesn't run through the quarterback. It runs on the ground and then through everybody else. And this defense is just stifling. Georgia is a scary team.
Tends to happen when you have the number one recruiting class for the past 4 years.
That generally helps.
Helps a lot, and usually.
Got one of the best players at his position on your team, and he has the ability to absolutely take over a game, especially in the red zone. Brock Bowers, of course, who we're talking about there.
Yeah. Ladd McConkey was also added to the Blitnikoff Award watch list alongside Brock Bowers, though. Kind of an interesting addition there. I was surprised at that, but then at the same time, I realized Ladd McConkey is pretty decent. I just don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball. And usually when you have a first-year starting quarterback, the tight end becomes even more valuable, and you have Brock Bowers there. So
My man was so close to having the best name ever. Lad McCockiner would have been perfect.
Yeah.
You have anything to say
think
about this defense? Because I think that's where a lot of these questions are coming from. 2 years in a row, we've seen massive turnover on the defense. Do we have
Right.
any reason to think it's not going to be the same result?
Is Kirby Smart the coach?
No,
yeah.
he's only on the slide for
Cool.
aesthetics.
Well, no, I'm saying that because if Kirby Smart is the coach, then I have no questions about their defense. I don't care how much turnover they have. He has had a history of making top in the nation, top 10 national defenses ever since he was the defensive coordinator at Alabama. I'm not worried about that defense in terms of are they going to be good? They will be good.
Yeah, I think a lot of the consternation goes back to like the All-America squads or even the All-Conference squads. And like, wow, there are a lot fewer Georgia players on this than we're used to at this point. We don't know who these guys are because there have been first-round draft picks backing up first-round draft picks at their positions for the last 2 years. So it's very possible these guys are also first-round draft picks, like the entire starting 11 again. Yeah. We just don't really know that yet. The only one who really broke through and had a ton of playing time was Jamin Dumas Johnson, dumbass Johnson.
Nice.
And that's why he's on all the All-America squads, because he is awesome. But everybody else, we'll see. I think that's the most fair way to say it right now.
When you were a 2 last year and you end up on the preseason All-America squad, you're pretty good.
I'm looking through their schedule here. Maybe Tennessee is a concern near the end of the season, and then you can never rule out rivalry week, even though it is Georgia Tech. This is it's something people are going to be saying all year. Who is going to beat Georgia? And I think for good reason.
Well, another team that'll have a shot here is their next squad, Kentucky. The hometown boys.
Which, by the way, shout out Ball State for playing Kentucky and Georgia on back-to-back weeks.
Ugh. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
Max looking to get it.
I don't even know a good mashup there. The Maxsec challenge.
Oh, God.
But Ball State's playing 2 of those games, so, good luck.
Yeah. So Mark Stoops is back. Mark Stoops is very nearly, I think he's closing in very quickly on being the winningest head coach in Kentucky football history, which sounds really dumb when you realize he's 66 and 59 in his career, but also like, when's the last time Kentucky was good? I guess you have to go back to Bear Bryant in the 70s. So
we declared them a football school last year, remember?
Yes.
That's when they started being good at football.
They did lose their quarterback, though. They are bringing in a transfer that I have really enjoyed for a couple of years, last year being the exception. It's probably why he's transferring. NC State former quarterback Devin Leary is in. And 1,000-yard rusher from Vanderbilt is trying to upgrade his draft potential by coming to a real football school in Ray Davis. Looking forward to this offense. I think it's going to be a lot more dynamic of an offense than what we had last year at Kentucky. And the defense is always like pretty good. I'm not going to go out and say they're going to be great, but
really the whole team just wasn't good in their bowl game last year, because not only did they lose to Iowa, they got shut out by Iowa, and it looks like Iowa scored 3 touchdowns because it was 21-0. I'm not ruling out that Iowa kicked. How many field goals is that? 7 field goals. I'm not going to rule that out because I know how bad Iowa's offense is, but man, I hope that's not a sign of what this team is going to be going into this season.
It's not.
I do think, as dangerous as that is, Iowa scored some points on defense in that game.
That's probably a safe assessment.
And I also believe that Will Levis did not participate. So
I figured Will Levis didn't play, and I'm sure they had some other holdouts as well. That's unfortunately what bowl season's become this year. Look, they've got a gauntlet as far as the schedule goes this year. I don't. Missouri is probably one of their easiest conference games. They didn't get the lucky draw like I feel like Georgia did to a degree. So we'll see
yeah,
how
but
it goes for them.
always have Vandy on the schedule, right?
You
Right,
always
everyone.
have that Vandy known as Vandy.
Y'all
They are not our
Vandy
next school,
haters.
however.
Y'all
The
Vandy
next
haters.
school,
I'm gonna school y'all on Vanderbilt once we get there. We have Missouri to get to first.
Yeah, the team I said was going to be their easy win. So let's talk about
it. Head coach Eli Drinkwitz is back for his 4th season. It's not Elijah, it's Elia. I hate it so much. Luckily, he goes by Eli half the time, so that's what I call him half the time.
Oh God, that name is disgusting.
I don't really know who their quarterback's going to be. That is usually a problem. I do know Luther Burden is really good and a local product. Was down to Missouri and Ohio State, ended up coming to Missouri.
Makes
Good
sense.
luck with that.
Well, at least he's going to see the field at Missouri.
Yeah. I mean, too scared to compete at a real wide receiver school. Come on.
That's also true.
Yeah, this is a pretty average team. And that's rough to say, especially when you're in the SEC. Being an average team probably means you're going to be below 500. I just don't know what they're going to get out of the quarterback position, and I don't trust this defense at all. So if the only things I can point to as being legitimate strengths for your team are your running back and one of your wide receivers, probably doesn't bode well for your season.
Especially not in the SEC.
And I'm sure there are other reasons, but the reason I'm going with for them not wanting to go to Memphis to play that game is they didn't want to drive all the way to Memphis, Tennessee to lose. So they decided we'll just go, a couple hours over to St. Louis and play in the Dome instead. I don't know. I get it. That agreement was probably made when Barry Odom was still there. In fact, I know it was. So that's probably what was a big driving factor for it. But it's pretty bitch made to me to back out of a home and home the year before it's supposed to happen. I don't know.
Welcome to the SEC.
Yeah.
Fuck them. I hate Mizzou. Let's move on to another team I hate just as much. Probably more.
Ah, yes, Bobby.
Damn it, Heupel. His 3rd season in Tennessee. Last year was a flash in the pan. I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't think there's any chance in hell they repeat that. They got a transfer quarterback from Virginia Tech who turned out to be somehow good for the first time ever in his life. And also they had 2 receivers that were really good. They're both gone. So now what?
Yeah, that's where I'm at is they lost their quarterback. And even just that alone, we watched what happened when Malik Hooker went down last year and their season just kind of fell apart. And then you lose Jalen Hyatt.
That's even with Joe Milton performing pretty well.
Yeah, and now you tack on the loss.
A solid quarterback, and they couldn't compete.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely because you tack on now you lost Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, and Cedric
Tillman.
Tillman. It is Tillman. Damn, I had it, guys. You should be proud of me.
You didn't have it though. You hesitated.
I hesitated because I was second guessing. I was like, it's not Tillman. It can't be Tillman, but it was Tillman.
Yeah. So therefore you were wrong. It's okay.
Yeah. 2 of 3 is still good for me.
No, it's an improvement. We're making progress.
I can't see them coming out and doing the same thing again this year. I don't.
Yeah, but they got Brew McCoy.
Who?
Brew McCoy. Yeah, I mean, you look at their record last year. They were 11-2. That's most of Heupel's wins and very few of his losses. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible. But I definitely agree that it was a flash in the pan. Man, I think
it's very possible they're like a 9 or 10 win team. I think
that's probably fair.
But they're not turning
legitimately
heads. They
competing
were.
with Georgia.
Yeah.
Right.
No. They're not. And this is the thing that kind of sucks because this half of the SEC is generally
Georgia.
shittier, or
Why did you
it's
go to Boston?
yeah, sorry, or it's dominated by one team. What competition did Florida run into in the early 2000s? Georgia. Okay, Georgia got stomped every time. So what are we really talking about?
I know. Even the Matthew Stafford Georgia teams got shit rocked by Florida.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and then I mean, Missouri won. They entered the SEC and won it 3 years in a row, and they got absolutely wrecked by Alabama and I think LSU once in there because the East is just, or the West rather. No, it is the East.
The West just means more.
The West just means more than the East meaning more. So the West means more.
Yeah, it's a fucking disaster. There's unfortunately no real competition in this half of the conference, and we haven't really talked about Tennessee's schedule, but let's face it, their rivalry game is Vanderbilt, and that's about all you need to know about how shitty the schedule is for them.
Yeah. So the SEC East means one more, and the SEC West means more.
Yes.
That's great. Now it's time to talk about the real USC.
Time to talk about Cox.
Shane Beamer is back for his third season. Shane Beamer, the job he's done here is very exciting. There's reason to be interested in watching the Cox this year. And
should always watch
Cox. Some of that does come down to Spencer Rattler actually being fun, if not good. At least he's fun at USC now. Trey Knox coming in from Arkansas should help that tight end room.
Yes.
I think the front of this defense is exciting for a couple of reasons, and they're recruiting very well on the defensive line as well. Should be good for Shane Beamer's tenure. And the fact that he turned down Virginia Tech to stay at USC like in year one shows that he's committed to this job. And now he's in year 3 and has them in, they lost by a touchdown to Notre Dame in a bowl game last year. It's kind of hard to fault them for that. They did upset Clemson to knock Clemson out of playoff contention. They upset Tennessee to knock Tennessee out of playoff contention. Like this is one of those teams where you really hate to see them on your schedule now.
And I think they've got that let's play spoiler mindset down. So it should be, at least in my mind, by my estimation, a pretty easy transition to switch to let's just be the motherfuckers. Let's win these games.
This is a team that for no reason actually gives Georgia a run for their money just about every year anyway. I don't think they have any chance of winning the SEC East, but if you ask me if that Georgia game is going to be interesting, the answer for me is yes.
Well, it's going to be extremely interesting because it's opening conference play for both of them. And this is going to be after South Carolina already opens the season against one of their biggest rivals, North Carolina. I think they're going to be more.
Go ahead.
I think they're going to be more ready for that Georgia game than Georgia will be.
Unfortunately for South Carolina here, my big concern on their schedule is the Furman game, which sounds
100%.
ridiculous until you look at how dang good Furman is right now, and the fact that they're probably going to overlook them because they're an FCS school.
They're playing they're playing one of their biggest rivals. You could maybe say their biggest rival. They do still have the Textile Bowl to close out the year against Clemson. But they're playing North Carolina to open the season. They play Furman, and then they play the biggest game of their conference slate week 1.
Yeah.
It has trap game written all over it.
That's a very tough sandwich, and Furman's a legitimate FCS national title contender down there. So it could be a very fun couple of weeks to open the season for USC.
Yep.
We'll see what they're made of early.
And of course, we'll talk about Furman more when we get to our FCS previews.
Now we get to the best damn team in the SEC South, which y'all don't understand. That's okay. It's freaking Vanderbilt, guys.
Okay.
That coach looks like he's confused at the team he's putting on the field.
No, I'll tell you what that coach looks like. Clark Lee looks like the guy who voices Mr. Krabs. Straight up.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. They are returning some talent across the offense, except for their 1,000-yard running back, which we already mentioned with Kentucky. But A.J. Swan is back. A.J. Swan looked very good last year across a surprisingly decent offensive line. That's what Clark Lee was specializing in, was the trenches, mostly across the defensive front, but it's translated to a good offensive line as well. Probably the best Vanderbilt's had across both trenches under Clark Lee here.
So, question on that.
Mm-hmm.
It concerns me when we highlight, key players on the offense and defense, and we enjoy putting in offensive linemen in there. But you're in the SEC. This team has got a good offensive line, but not a single offensive lineman is a key for this.
Yeah,
offense.
I was the one that I had in there actually then transferred, so I had to replace him real quickly. And so what I did was something I thought would be fun and interesting, because Cedric Alexander there is a true freshman, and I think that's a bold choice. But also, I thought it'd be the right place to talk about it because they just lost their 1,000-yard rusher, and the guys behind him didn't do a ton. I think this is going to be a running back rotation to start the year, but I kind of expect Cedric Alexander to take over that room. He's a high 4-star coming in, and he might end up being their main running back at the end of this season. I would not at all be surprised with that. And honestly, that kind of makes me excited in itself.
Yep, that's fair. All right.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but is anchor where on the field is that? And I love that they have incorporated that into their naming convention of their defense.
Yeah, it's one of those like hybrid defensive back linebacker roles that everybody has.
It's a Lobo
name
back.
for.
It's a Lobo back, but
Yeah.
for the
Commodores.
Yeah.
Here's my second biggest question about Vanderbilt this year is: are they going to have to play against Alabama A&M in a high school stadium as well? Because if you haven't seen the pictures of what their stadium upgrade currently looks like, it ain't good. And I know Nashville's had some bad weather, but Jesus.
So there is a little bit of a reprieve there. They didn't expect to have the stadium done this year. The end zone.
They were planning,
the end zone seating was going to be done heading into 2024. So they were already expecting to not have those sections available. It's the other, they're finishing some touches on the sections that they were planning to have open this year. So I don't think it'll be the entire season or anything. It might be 1 or 2 games that they are delayed because of weather. But the actual plan for the stadium renovations is very nearly where they expected it to be. So I don't think that's as bad as what it sounded like. But yeah, they're definitely playing Hawaii and probably Alabama A&M on a high school field, which is hilarious.
That'd be great. At that point, if you're Alabama A&M, do you just want to make this an away game? We'll still take the money, but we'll host.
We'll take your travel costs out of our cut. That's fine.
Yep.
Man, that'd be awesome. Actually,
that's what I'm saying. Like
that.
Hawaii can't really do that, but
I mean, I don't know that Alabama A&M really can either, but
it's different when you're driving down the road versus flying across the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. It's farther drive than you're giving it credit for. This ain't South Dakota where driving across the state in one night is just normal.
Let's move on to the big bad man.
I'm just trying to think of how it's a shorter drive from Nashville, Tennessee to what part of Alabama is Alabama A&M in?
Doesn't matter at this point. We're moving to the
They're
SEC
not in
West.
Tuscaloosa.
It was a joke at your expense, and we're moving
I know,
on.
and now I'm trying to logically make sense of it.
Yeah, there is no logic. We're talking about Alabama. We're talking about head coach Nick Saban's 17th season with the Crimson Tide, where he is 194-27 overall. That's really good if you weren't aware. He's also won a couple of national championships in his career. I don't know,
If you
maybe the
weren't
most
aware.
of anyone ever. So that's kind of cool. I will say it is interesting to me how everyone is a little bit down on Alabama right now. I know I'm saying that even with people putting Alabama like number 3 or number 2 in a lot of their preseason polls, but it does feel like the general rumblings about Alabama are a little bit muted compared to what they have been in recent years. I think that's purely because nobody knows who this quarterback is going to be, and it's a little bit of a more old school roster construction than what we've seen in the past couple of national championship winners. This is a 2009 to 2014, 2015 Alabama roster where you're going to have a great running back in Jace McClellan, one dominant wide receiver in Jermaine Burton here, a great offensive line, and then you're going to plug and play at quarterback. And there are a couple of good options there, but I don't know who's really going to start. People have speculated it'll be Milroe. I don't really believe in Milroe. I think his arms are bigger than his throwing ability. It's very cool to see him on the field because he's so dang jacked. But I don't think he's actually that good of a quarterback. It might end up being true freshman Ty Simpson. I don't know right now. And the defense is the scary part of this roster, which again goes back to the past when Nick Saban was winning a whole bunch of national championships. So I kind of understand where he's coming from with this, but it does feel like an old school roster construction, which may or may not work in today's college football.
Well, but I think he had to switch it up, right? Because much like Bill Belichick, he had after having so much dominance for so long, he finally showed a chink in the armor here. But you're right. They absolutely had gotten away from what made them so great. And even those teams, it was still the guarantee promise when he was recruiting players, hey, we will get you to a national championship by the time you are a senior. It hasn't worked out for them the past 2 years. Maybe this is the path that they need to take to be able to, cash in on that promise that they're making these recruits.
And I think this is true Alabama. This is Nick Saban's true style of playing. I think he got a few quarterbacks that he fell in love with and knew that he had to let them show their talent. But this is where he's comfortable, is in that running heavy style, old school smash mouth type football. I mean, Alabama was churning out running backs. Hell, they still are churning out running backs like no other. Oh, it feels like every year their running back's a first round pick or early second round pick. So, man, to think that this guy was a number 2 last year, because he was behind
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Thank you. I went to Bijan. I was like, no, that's Texas. And Jahmyr Gibbs was a number 2 behind Najee. Like, you could go down the line, and all of those guys.
Jahmyr Gibbs was a transfer from Georgia Tech.
Wow. So he's the weird one.
Yep.
But you guys get where I'm going, right?
I know.
So this scares me more that they're getting back to what true Alabama is, at least in my estimation, going into this season. That makes them a little bit stronger, honestly.
You know what really scares me is that Nick Saban is 6 wins away from 200, which would only put him 32 behind Bear Bryant. I think 6 wins is easy. He'll definitely get it. The question is,
I hope so.
Weeks,
he might get fired if he only gets 6 wins.
Right. Week 6, they play Texas A&M in College Station. That ain't good. Their next game is against Arkansas, which perhaps they will win, but I'm also looking at a game that we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about later against Texas that, maybe they don't win that one too. So we'll talk more in depth about that, but it's going to be interesting.
That's a pre-conference game.
Yeah, right. It's going to be interesting to see, and there's definitely going to be a lot of chatter about Nick Saban getting his 200th win this season. So just be ready for it about week 6, 7, or 8.
We got Alabama squirting some pre-conference.
Yes.
And we're on to Arkansas. Woo, pig.
Pig.
Woo, damn pig. The unofficial SEC team of the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast.
They just
only unofficial because they haven't recognized us as such, even though we definitely recognize them as such. Sam Pittman is my favorite human being on earth. He's entering his 4th season at the Arkansas Razorbacks head coach. And he is 19-17 overall, which doesn't sound great. But then you realize this team was in the gutter when he got here and very quickly turned it into a team that nobody really wants to have to play. KJ Jefferson is awesome when he is healthy. He is probably the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in this conference when he's at full 100% health. Raheem Sanders made our All-America team. He is one of the fastest players in all of college football. This is a fun squad. And I don't know how much that's going to translate to a ton of wins. I do expect them to be bowl eligible again, but either way, they'll be fun to watch for sure.
And how KJ Jefferson goes is how this team goes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were completely different after he got hurt last year, right? I mean, we had delusions. I'll call them delusions that they would have a chance at the conference, potentially sneaking into the college football playoffs. Because who doesn't want to get wrapped up in that stuff during the season? KJ Jefferson going down absolutely dashed any even semi-realistic thought of that happening.
Right.
If he stays healthy, though, I think they have the construct on their team this year to get it done.
Look, all I'm thinking of now, and I know it's not Sam Pittman's style of offense, but you give me like mid 2010s Oregon speed option with KJ Jefferson and Raheem Sanders. That's a scary thought. Like, even if you're only running it like 2 or 3 times a day, like 2 or 3 times a game, that's going to get you chunk yardage.
You cracking another yoo-hoo?
Hell yeah, baby.
Big summer blowout.
It just tastes better.
He needed a second one because it just
dehydrates you so good. No, can you? That is a wild thought. Thinking of KJ Jefferson and Raheem Sanders in a Chip Kelly offense of old.
Yes,
that's not going to happen.
No, it's not. But like I said, even if you roll that into your playbook for like 1 or 2 times, like it's a one-off. It's not something you're going to go run like Chip Kelly was running, but that'll get you yardage in areas where they're not expecting it.
And they definitely have integrated some of those concepts in the past. Like, it's not unusual to see them run a little bit of option here and there.
Well, and think about, what was it, 2 years ago with Treylon Burks? They know how to use speed to their advantage.
Right. Speed and size. They don't have a ton of size on the outside anymore, but they have speed in bunches. So.
I like it.
Let's move along to Auburn with
Tigers.
First-year head coach Hugh Freeze. He's got some SEC experience, but what does that actually mean for Auburn? I don't know why people are so excited and so high on him, if I'm being honest.
Well, I'll tell you why people are so excited about him, because he's bringing in one of the best recruiting classes Auburn's seen in a while. And he's beating Georgia for some recruits. And he's beating Alabama for a guy on the recruiting stage, which doesn't mean a ton for this year. But then you look at the transfers he's brought in, and hey, these are some pretty good recruits too. You kind of have to give him a little bit of credit. Nick Mardner comes in from Cincinnati, where he was a really good wide receiver. We'll see if that translates to the SEC. I think it certainly can. Avery Jones coming in from ECU. He was a great center for East Carolina. Auburn needed a center very badly. So they bring in Avery Jones, he was like the best center in the American. Justin Rogers coming over from Kentucky. Like, I think that's an underrated addition to this Auburn squad, where Justin Rogers probably didn't get enough love out of Kentucky as he deserves. Hopefully this elevates his stock a little bit. I like how they have – I like their defensive backs as far as I can throw them. Like, in college, they're really good at what they do. I don't know that Nehemiah Pritchett's really an NFL corner. But, man, at Auburn, he's been really good. And, you're able to keep that kind of a guy. You're able to keep Jarquez Hunter. Like, I think this is a really solid team. And for a first-year head coach at Auburn, that's about what you can ask for. And then he's coming in here and winning a bunch of recruiting battles. So I think in a couple of years, Auburn might really be pretty scary.
It just fucking blows my mind that didn't they just fire their last head coach for sleeping with an intern or something like that, and then Hugh Freeze is the guy that you hire?
Yeah.
I don't help me understand. They play Cal though, so that'll be cool. They're traveling all the way across the country for that one, all the way out to Berkeley.
That supports Pug's theory.
Mark that down. Mark that down as a game in the Pac-12 I definitely do not want to watch.
9:30 p.m. Central start time. That means it's going to be a 10:30 start time for all the kids in Auburn. Or no, I think they're still in Central time in Auburn.
Absolutely disgusting.
They're still squirting some pre-conference there.
You got to ruin it every time, huh?
I love ruining things. It's the best.
So is this the year we start to see LSU go downhill because Brian Kelly's recruits are coming in?
Not yet. Not yet. This is the last good year for LSU before disaster strikes.
Look,
I don't know. How long is he going to keep the fake Bayou accent up? Because as long as that's going on, I think they've got a chance.
He only does it like 10% of the time right now. So
that's fair.
And the thing is that was his issue at Notre Dame. He just, and Doug, you've said this plenty of times, he just cannot recruit.
Yeah, it certainly felt like it was coming down to that at Notre Dame, where he's a good coach, but man, the level of talent they were bringing in was not commensurate with the status of the program. Yeah. And I think some of that did come down to the restrictions he had at Notre Dame, and those restrictions are definitely gone at LSU. So,
and I think some of that too is Notre Dame. They don't help out their coaches in a lot of ways. Recruit. Right. They expect you to just be able to walk into a recruit's house and say, "We're Notre Dame," and people want to go there. There's more you could get into with that. If I don't think this is the time
you can do that. You can do that in the Northeast, but that's not going to get you the top football talent that you're looking for.
Yeah, but to be fair, there was a kid, a linebacker, who said he was all set to come to Ohio State, and then he went to summer camp and opened his Bible and found a passage that he thought he interpreted as God telling him to go to Notre Dame. So that just happened a couple of weeks ago. Legitimately, Notre Dame still does recruit itself in a lot of ways. But we'll see how he can do at LSU. In the meantime, this is one of the most talented LSU squads we've ever seen, in my opinion. And I know we just saw him win a national championship in 2019, but damn, this roster's good.
Yeah, it is. It still is. And Jaden Daniels is legit too.
And he came from Arizona State, so fuck you, never watching the Pac-12, motherfuckers. You never know about this guy.
Hey, literally everybody's on board with us saying fuck the Pac-12. You're the only one that's clinging. You're clinging to the Pac-12 as much as Stanford and Cal, and I mean, you're clinging on.
We still have a whole nother season of Pac-12 football. Yeah, watch the damn Pac-12.
Even the Pac-12 said fuck the Pac-12.
Fuck you.
I don't remember if we talked about this game when we were talking about the ACC, but opening the season at Camping World Stadium against Florida State, I cannot wait for that game. I'm fine double tapping it.
Because last year we saw this matchup in the Superdome in a neutral site game that was obviously a home game.
Yes, a neutral site in Louisiana. Yes.
And now this year it's a neutral site at Camping World, which is obviously the home game for Florida State. So, but yeah, that's week 1. And that's awesome. It's on its own day. It's actually on Sunday. So it gets a whole separate set of eyes on it. It's going to be awesome. This should be an amazing game.
And even playing Grambling State's going to be fucking awesome. I mean,
well, not really. Grambling State sucks.
But the halftime show's fitting to be lit.
That's true. If you're watching it for the halftime show.
Go back. I want to talk about some of these defensive guys. Oh. Mason Smith with 2 A's is dope, and I love Mason Smith. And also, Lasagna.
Lasagna Smith.
He's the Italian defensive tackle. Lasagna. Harold Perkins is probably my second favorite linebacker in the country. Figure it out.
It still messes me up seeing Mekhi Wingo because it immediately makes me think of
Trey Wingo?
no, I'm thinking of
Mekhi
Mingo.
Becton?
Is it Barkevius Mingo?
Yeah.
And which inevitably goes, no, it's a different name. And I immediately go back to SpongeBob of Wumbo versus Jumbo. And I don't know why. I just get stuck there in a constant because you're mixing up the M and the W.
Which one's Wumbo in this instance?
Well, it would be Wingo.
That is an interesting debate.
No, it would be Wingo because it's a W, not an M.
Yeah, but which one's actually in spirit Wumbo? I don't know. Worth discussing. Email us at mailbox at bdtfootball.com with your answers. Let's talk about the Ole Miss Rebels. Lane Kiffin is entering his fourth season with the Sharks, whatever they happen to go by at this particular moment. They have like 7 different mascots.
Now that is a down south last name.
Which one?
Quinshon Judkins.
Quinshon Judkins ran for over 1,800 yards last year, led the FBS in rushing, actually, even over.
He's good.
The guy out of Texas who got drafted very high, Bijan Robinson. Everybody's loving up on Quinshon Judkins. I don't like him as much as everyone tells me that I should. And maybe that's a me problem.
Bro, that's just how you are with running backs. You love all the ones they say you shouldn't, and the ones they say you should, you go, yeah, but should I?
I see the flaws in his game, and it's like that's the stuff that I never saw at a Bijan, which I guess is unfair in a lot of ways because Bijan was one of the best running back prospects we've seen in a very long time. But I don't know that Quinshon's going to lead the FBS in rushing yards again, and I don't think it's fair to put him up in a Heisman conversation like some have tried to do. So
I'm looking at their schedule. This is the second SEC school I've seen that has a fan guide on what to wear on their schedule. Missouri was the other one. I'm pretty sure all of them did. That these are just the 2 that stuck out. They always try to pop out the powder blues to make things important. At home they'll wear the powder blue top with the powder blue helmet. On the road, they'll likely wear the powder blue helmet. And they've got one home game, one road game where they want the fans to wear powder blue. The home game is homecoming against Vanderbilt. So that's, chalk it up to an easy win. Would y'all like to guess what the away game that they're telling their fans to wear powder blue to is?
I'm going to guess the Egg Bowl.
No. Actually, it's a game that they're definitely not going to win, not just a game that they might.
Oh, then it's Alabama.
Win. Yeah, it's Alabama.
Yeah. I do like their great wide receiver transfer out of UTSA. Zachary Franklin was definitely our favorite receiver out of the American. I guess not the American yet. Out of Conference USA last year. But now they're in the American, and Zachary Franklin's not
senior
there.
This year?
I believe so.
Because I remember him tormenting Memphis.
Yeah. He did. Definitely did.
Yeah.
It was painful.
They also bring in transfer linebacker Monty Montgomery from Louisville, which is just a great name.
It is. I don't know if it's as good as Quinshon Judkins, but it's a good name.
I also think Monty Montgomery is going to be a starter, so that doubly great.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and jump to their Egg Bowl rivals in Mississippi State.
The team we like more.
They are helmed by first-year head coach Zach Arnett for unfortunate reasons. Last year's bowl game against Illinois was very much they became America's team. at least for that one game. I very much doubt that will continue into this season because there are a lot of teams, especially in the SEC, really can't stand Mississippi State. But I do think Zach Arnett was the best possible choice in this really difficult situation. That's a continuation of some of the Mike Leach culture while also being a defensive focused guy where the offensive focus of what Mike Leach was trying to do, as much as we love Mike Leach and as much of this is not a knock on him in any way, it wasn't resulting in like great seasons for Mississippi State. They weren't competing in the division, which I don't know if it's fair to expect that.
Yeah.
But also it is kind of, let's try something different, right? And let's go with a defensive guy in this. We were forced to change. Let's go with something different.
Well, and you gotta.
I'm trying to find a silver lining here. The situation really.
I've got the silver lining for you. He was able to navigate this team and this locker room to a victory in that Real Quest Bowl.
Yep.
Right.
In the midst of Mike Leach's untimely
against
passing.
a very good Illinois team.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
Zach Arnett, when you do something like he did at the end of last season, navigating this team through that time to a victory, that buys the players backing into you as a coach. And that opens up a whole different list of possibilities. The players are going to play at a whole different, even level, honestly. They're going to leave everything they have for you on the field. Theoretically, they should be anyway, but not every coach unlocks that. And I think even in that one game, he was able to unlock that based on the events that had happened.
I will say, too, even though he is a defensive-minded head coach, he does have the advantage of Will Rogers coming back this season.
Who doesn't really look like that picture. That's an old picture where he had long red hair. But
I mean, he should still have red hair.
He doesn't really. It's darker now. And like it's basically brown.
He bought his soul back from the devil.
No, he didn't. He went to Mississippi State.
And
there was a trade-off there.
I don't understand why you're such a fan of Quinshon Judkins' name and not a fan of Joquavius Marks.
Because he can't pronounce Joquavius.
No, I can. Actually, Doug, it's funny you said that, but my initial, when I first looked at the slide, went to Jet Johnson. I was like, that's a good name too.
I mean, sure, but he's so white.
He's got to be.
Come on.
He looks like a ghost almost.
I know.
Yeah, whoever turned the flash on that camera needs to not next time.
They should have given him some stage makeup so we could actually see him.
Yeah, I can almost see myself in his face.
He's like John Cena. You can't see him.
Which is very useful as an outside linebacker, must say.
Yes, absolutely.
Really disguising the coverage out there.
I'm not gonna lie, when he goes up for the draft, I'm gonna be paying attention to his 40 time, because you can't have a name like Jet and be slow. Like, that's just not allowed.
He's gonna run in the sixes as a linebacker.
At which point I will change his name to Propeller Johnson.
Look, it does not matter what Mississippi State does all year. The only game anybody looks forward to for them year in and year out is the Egg Bowl, and there's plenty of reason for that. Just go watch the past couple Egg Bowls. It's high quality entertainment no matter what way you try and spin it.
Was it this year or last year that was decided because of some stupid penalties at the end of the game?
That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay. I think that was at least 2 years ago, if not 3.
When somebody laid a football egg.
And then somebody pissed on the goalpost like a dog.
Yeah, that one.
It was a couple of really great penalties in the history of the Egg Bowl. But the last team in the SEC West is Texas A&M, the Aggies.
Same color scheme as the team before them. Makes it nice.
Great oil magnate himself, Jimbo Fisher, in his 6th season with the team, and a worse winning percentage than the guy that they had before, Jimbo Fisher, and they fired because he wasn't winning enough.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
Jimbo was smart, and he tied their hands. Even the oil magnates, the real ones, don't want to fire him because he will cost way too much money to fire.
Yes.
Which is saying something because he has not gotten to the point where they're like, look, dude, we'd rather pay you to not coach for us.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a lot of money to let him go, but he's also 39-21 overall and didn't make a bowl game last year. So
on a year they were touted as
we'll see.
potentials for the SEC West.
And he had to cut about half of his team because all the boosters cared about doing was buying the best team possible. And he's like, no, I don't want half of these players. He's really in a tough position when you get down to it.
And they lost to Appalachian State, which was amazing, but brutal.
Yeah, that's not helpful to them. I'm looking through their non-conference schedule though. I don't see any
Appalachian States.
I don't see any Appalachian States. But what I do see that I have not seen on pretty much any other SEC schedule, I always go to the team website, and I've mentioned this every show. What do I see on Texas A&M's schedule on their website that I don't see on other teams?
I know what you're talking about. I want to hear what's your guess, Tug?
Oh, is it not a cupcake?
No. They play ACU before playing LSU to close out the
Abilene
season.
Christian, baby.
Okay, then I don't know.
They have the date for the SEC championship on their schedule, while no other SEC team, and I mean no other SEC team does.
Look, there's two teams in the SEC that can really do that on a yearly basis, and it's Georgia and Alabama.
Alabama, I don't think even did. I'm double checking now.
No, but I'm saying those are the only teams that are allowed to, and the two teams that are allowed to probably don't because they know that you don't schedule that.
Yeah, Georgia doesn't have it.
It can be interesting if they
son
do.
Of a bitch. Look, Jimbo's seat is as on fire as it can get without them being willing
actually
to pull
being hot.
Dude, he's sitting on fucking
it's also
dry ice right now. That's what he's sitting on. It's super cold, but it hurts because they're trying to get him out.
So it's not a hot seat; it's just prickly.
It's a frostbitten seat.
He keeps trying to stand up, and the seat comes with him.
So because the roster has had some turnover, I do have some interesting additions to this lineup that we have on the screen here, including a very young running back in Ruben Owens II, pretty unproven guy, true freshman, originally committed to University of Louisville, and then said, actually, money sounds cool. I would like some of that. And ended up at Texas A&M. Don't blame him, but also we'll see how that goes. I do like Evan Stewart, but I don't know what he can really do by himself out there in the receiving corps. But down on the defense, the only guy I'm really that excited about out of anybody here is the corner, Tony Grimes, transfer from North Carolina. He started, actually legitimately was a starter for North Carolina when he was 16 years old. He came into North Carolina very young and was an immediate impact player. He's a senior now, and I don't know if he's legal drinking age yet. So it's very possible that he becomes one of the youngest drafted players ever. And also he will have exhausted all of his eligibility. So it's really a crazy story. I do like Tony Grimes a lot. I think he's a fantastic football player and is probably going to be the best part of this defense right now. They are very young across the defensive line. I think there's potential there, but I don't know enough about them to trust them yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing Tony Grimes.
I'm very intrigued by this team, as I feel like I always end up being. We already mentioned they're going to have Alabama at home. That could be Nick Saban's 200th win, or they could 100% pull out another upset against the Crimson Tide at home.
They like doing that.
They do like doing that. However, that is the only big game, tough game I see on their schedule as far as in their division that they have at home. Sure, Auburn could potentially be a tough one, and they have that one at home. And then they have the Arkansas rivalry at AT&T Stadium, which for all intents and purposes, a home game for them there as well. I'm curious to see how this shakes out for them.
Yeah, I would be willing to put money on them making a bowl game this year.
I think that's
That
fair.
seemed unbelievable that they didn't make a bowl game last year. I guess it's theoretically possible that they don't. We'll see.
2-6 in the conference. You got to be better than that.
Yeah, that's rough. But we have our pre-conference matchup here: Texas at Alabama as one of our top 3 most anticipated non-conference games to watch. Obviously, that was going to be on there. Last year was a banger. This year ought to be another slapperoni.
We were sitting there chest painted, cheering on my niece at her softball game, and anytime she wasn't doing something, we were staring at our phone trying to see how this game would end. Because even with Quinn Ewers getting hurt and them having to go to Hudson Card, the game was still incredibly close, and it came down to a missed field goal because, of course, the college kicker missed a field goal. If I'm remembering, it came down to a field goal. I'm pretty sure they missed it.
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind that Quinn Ewers wins that game for the Texas Longhorns. I'm very interested to see if he's able to do something like that again this year in a hostile environment.
And then 2 Big 12 SEC matchups on the same day, September 16. We have BYU heading to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we have Kansas State heading to Columbia, Missouri. I mean, Kansas State, Missouri is just an old school matchup.
It's an old school matchup. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I am excited for that one.
And then BYU, Arkansas feels like a legitimate test for both squads. How far can we actually expect both of them to end up going? Like, we think both of them should be comfortably a bowl eligible team, but like, can either of them compete for their conferences? I think the winner of this game will have a lot more momentum, certainly, and you'll feel a lot more confident about their season after this game.
And I would also like to point out that we're not really picking the Missouri Kansas State game out of pity for them, as far as wanting to have like a non-conference game on that half of the conference.
Right.
It's more of a sense that they're the only ones that didn't completely load up their non-conference schedule with cupcakes on that half of the conference.
Well, and it is such an old school matchup; it just feels right. Like Kansas State, Missouri feels like a game that ought to happen all the time.
So. It does, and I would say too, there's more implications for this for the Big 12 than I would say for the SEC. Like, this is a much bigger game for Kansas State than it is for Missouri, just because of the way Kansas State finished the year out, right?
Right. If your Big 12 champions can't beat a mid-tier SEC's team, that just looks bad for the conference as a whole. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily fair, but it's definitely the way that'll be reported on ESPN. So,
what ESCCPN? Yeah, 100%. That takes us to the end here, to the big SEC splash page. Tug's got some family stuff going on, so I think we're going to get to pick his conference winners yet again, which he is just going to love.
Well, he would obviously take Vanderbilt against Mississippi State in the conference championship game, and I think he would absolutely be picking the Commodores in that game. Playoff bound Vandy. Lock it in for Tugas.
And it's locked in.
Perfect.
Now,
do you want to be boring or do I want to be boring? Or do we both want to be boring?
I'll let you be boring, and I'll determine my version of boring afterwards.
Well, let's both start with the East here, because I'm going to be very boring over there. I'm going to say Georgia's going to win the SEC East.
I have no reason to say otherwise. I want there to be a team that comes out of the East that matters. Besides one, I just unfortunately don't see it.
The West is where things could get interesting.
Yes. I will 100% say this. For all the shit we give the SEC, a lot of that's predicated on you pretty much know who's going to win the national champion or win the SEC championship game before you get there. You do not know, however, who is going to win the West. And that's even when Alabama has been at their very best. You always look at the schedule and be like, well, they could lose
There
this
is
one.
a shot. There is a shot.
They could lose this one. And they always
that
have
run of dominance, though. It was always like, well, if Alabama makes it to the SEC championship game, it's not going to be a contest. So
yeah.
The real SEC championship game is going to be Alabama LSU that year, or Alabama Texas A&M that year, or whatever.
Or hell, even Alabama Auburn, because you want to talk about the
Right.
most unpredictable game on the schedule. That one's it.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually not going to pick Alabama out of the West. If you want to, feel free. I'm going with LSU.
Okay. That is
which
that
I guess
is
would be a repeat of last year as far as the winners of each division, which is unusual. Here's where it's going to get wild, though. I'm going to pick LSU against Georgia in that championship game.
Man, we just talked all that shit about Brian Kelly.
I said this is one of the most talented team LSU's had.
Yeah, that's fair. Man, do I want to be absolute?
Be boring. It'll help our overall score.
It'll help our credibility. I unfortunately don't see Auburn doing it. LSU, I think, is a good shot. You know, no reason to think that they wouldn't. I'll go ahead and just pencil this in. I'm going to say UGA is repeating. They're winning the conference. All right, so we'll cover that. We'll be extra vanilla there.
Sure.
But then that leaves Ole Miss, who's not going to do it. Mississippi State, who's not going to do it. It'd be awesome if Mississippi State did. So now I'm left with Texas A&M, Auburn, and Arkansas. And I can't remember if I wrote off Auburn or not. I don't trust Hugh Freeze in his first year. So, again, they might ruin it for Alabama. And there'd be some weird tiebreaker where even though they win the head-to-head against both of these teams, it allows Arkansas or Texas A&M to get in. But ultimately, I think it is going to be Alabama. The more I keep trying to find a way to talk myself into it,
right,
where it's at least somewhat realistic, I do think it is going to be – I think it's going to be a three-horse race. I think it's going to be Alabama, LSU, and then there's going to be one of these other teams that surprises us. And I don't get that.
If I had to pick a third team, because obviously the other option, if it's not LSU, for me, the right answer is Alabama. Right. Like 70%, I should pick Alabama. I want to pick LSU because it's kind of fun. The other like 5% out there, if I'm picking a third team out of the West, for me right now is Ole Miss.
Really?
And I know I talked about how I don't really know what I'm getting out of the quarterback right now, and it is a little bit of a I don't know if Quinshon Judkins is as great as everyone thinks he is, but man, the way that offense played last year, it really did look very good. I don't trust anybody else right now.
And you talk about not trusting Brian Kelly, and I think there's plenty of proof to back that one up. I don't trust Lane Kiffin for the same reasons.
Sure.
I'm curious to see when the other shoe is going to fall and it's going to go off the rails for Lane Kiffin there.
Sure, but also the last times that it went off the rail, when he was at USC, he was like 17 years old, basically. When he was at Florida Atlantic, he was like 4 years old as a head coach. I mean, it was weird. So he's an adult now, and he's at Ole Miss. I think it could work.
Didn't he? Am I going crazy? Didn't he get fired at Tennessee as well? Yeah, he got ran out of the rail there.
Yeah.
Ah, man,
which makes you love him, right?
I mean,
he tanked that program a little bit. It's good for you.
Oh, he tanked him so hard. But that again, that's where I do get nervous. It's just like looking at it
Right.
from an SEC standpoint, you got to be expecting the other shoe to drop at some point, and it's unfortunate. Is this the year that it happens, though? I don't know. I would love to see it be the year that Arkansas is able to elevate themselves in the conference. 3-5 in conference play is not something to brag about, but it's sure they're getting some of those wins, which is something that I like to talk about a lot. Whereas 3 years ago, it was like, man, they're so close to getting some of these wins. Now they're getting some. I'd love to see them build on that, and I think they could easily be in that conversation. They're proven that they're here. I would love to see them be the third team in that conversation. When you go back and look at the East, though, I don't even see a team that you can really confidently put into that they're going to be second place in the East conversation, right? Maybe South Carolina, maybe.
I would say Tennessee is your best bet for second place right now. But there are concerns
So
with
many question
Tennessee.
marks.
And Kentucky and South Carolina and Florida are all basically at the same level right now, it feels like. And if Tennessee regresses to their level, that means you have a 4-way tie for second place, basically, in everyone's mind, which is where unpredictability happens.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
It's basically the MAC of the SEC.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Complete parody. Thank you, Ball State, for bringing that into our lives.
They were our knight in shining armor tonight. Tug's not here to read them, which is unfortunate for us because I was so ready to hear him whine and complain about having to read these off.
I know, me too.
So I'll read them off.
Why he left. He actually doesn't have any family issues happening at the moment.
Oh,
he didn't want to read links. He's going to come back on in 3 seconds and be like, tricked y'all.
Gotcha. But if you would like to help support the show financially, you can head on over to patreon.com/BDT football, or you can head on over to twitch.tv/Big Dudes in the Trenches. Give us a follow. You can subscribe, which will help us monetarily there. If you're watching us live, that'd be awesome too. Help us grow the channel. And, you could donate bits. You can do all kinds of things on Twitch to help us out there. And did I mention we're live on Twitch? So you can absolutely watch us live. You can also check us out at twitter.com/BDT football. Although I do think x.com is going directly to Twitter now too, correct?
Yeah.
It's a weird transition. But we're there.
The past couple of days I've been getting, if I'm on a computer trying to get to X, I do go to x.com and it works. It's a thing.
Nice.
It feels awful, and I hate calling it that because it sounds gross still. But...
It feels dirty. He's going to be so happy. I'm going to finish reading these, and we're going to tell him what teams he picked. You can also check us out at facebook.com/BDT football.
Go ahead.
Hey, you want to read the rest of the links? You can.
I don't know what you read, so no.
Instagram.com/BDT_football. We also have a website. We're working on the best ways to utilize that. BDTfootball.com. You can also email us questions, though. We check that all the time. Mailbox at BDTfootball.com. You can watch these episodes later if you prefer the video version at youtube.com/Big Dudes in the Trenches. We've got the Discord link scrolling down below us here on the screen if you want to try and type that in, or you can check out the description. The permanent link is there as well. We're always talking in there. We'd love for you all to come and join us there as well. Tug.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Vandy and Auburn?
What, for last place in each division?
Oh, perfect, because that you officially have them picked as your division winners.
Whoa, hold on. Can I at least apologize? I have some family stuff going on.
Oh, we know, but we've been doing this every week.
Apologize all you want to.
We've been doing this every week, so we didn't think we'd get to keep the bit going, and then you had to leave. So
So
So your official picks for the SEC are Vandy and Auburn.
look,
With
guys,
Vanderbilt winning the conference,
I'm
obviously.
I'm under enough stress right now. My wife's going to be overnight in Detroit, and that's a scary thought. Okay.
That is scary. But I do want to tell you, for the Big Ten, you picked Maryland and Nebraska, with Nebraska winning the whole
At
dang
least
thing.
I didn't take Rutgers.
You
And
took
you have
Boston College in the
Virginia
ACC.
Tech.
You took West.
Hold on, I could get behind BC. I can get with that.
You took you took West Virginia winning it, playing Cincinnati in the Big 12.
Nope, don't agree with that. Nope.
You took Colorado winning it, playing Stanford in the Pac-12.
I will take that with Coach Prime. Dude, could you imagine Coach Prime comes in, goes, nah, I'm leaving, wins the conference championship on the way out?
No, I can't. That's why you picked
it.
You took Memphis beating UAB in the American.
The Battle of the Bones.
Yeah,
Part 2
rematch.
I like it.
You took Georgia State beating Texas State.
Look, I know there's one here that's going to piss me off. I know what you guys did without looking, but I'm waiting for you to say it. I'm waiting for you to say it.
You took USAPA beating Boise.
We
weren't. Now, Doug was wearing.
To you yet.
Doug was wearing a Wyoming hat during the whole episode.
I was waiting for you guys to say, Tug went Wyoming, and I would have lost.
Wyoming over Air Force would have been
the
impossible. Ideal pick. They're divisionless now. That's how USAPA's playing Boise in your scenario. Mountain West is divisionless this year. Yes. For the MAC, you took Buffalo over Eastern Michigan. Or no, actually the other way around. Eastern Michigan over
Buffalo.
Very exciting.
I picked those. I was there for that one.
He was.
That doesn't make sense to me, so that's cool. All right. Wild. All right, fair enough.
All right, I will take us out of here. Do any of you guys have anything else?
What do you call a sad strawberry?
I don't know.
A blueberry.
God damn it. All right, ladies and
gentlemen.
Hold
on, wait. I got one better.
I can't handle two dad jokes.
If a blackbird has black babies and a bluebird has blue babies, what bird has no babies?
A racist.
A swallow.
I like that one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have on the show today. Thank you for watching and or listening. And just remember, you can't win a game